What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. I am coming at you with a question that was asked to me from somebody on social media, and I love getting these questions. So anytime you have a question that you've just come up with, or maybe you see something floating around on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, and you're wondering if that's something that you should start putting into your own life to get changes and results, shoot it my way and I'll answer you and let you know if there's actually any validity to it or if it is a waste of time. And you connect with me through, if you're watching this on YouTube, just ask in the comments, or you can slide into my DMs, Kindal Boyle Fitness over on Instagram, or shoot me an email, kindle@fitwomensweekly.com. Now, today's question has to do with the 30-30-30 diet program. Have I ever heard of it? And if I had, what were my thoughts? To be honest, I had not. So I did a little bit of research and came up to some conclusions. Well, let me actually say this. I thought I had never heard of it, but turns out I actually had. It's just an older principle. So we're definitely going to break it down. But before we do that, do me a huge favor. If you enjoy listening to these podcasts or watching them, please make sure that you're subscribed on whatever platform it is that you are enjoying this on. Subscribe. It really does make a difference. Even if it comes into your feed on a weekly basis as like suggested for you because you've listened before, that's still not quite the same as actually hitting the subscribe button. So it would mean a lot to me if you can help support the channel just by hitting that little subscribe button. And if you have the chance to leave a testimonial a testimonial or review, right? I guess review is probably the better word. Then do that as well. I understand that not all podcast platforms allow for the review, but if you have that option, again, please do that as well. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just hit that like button. I put out new podcasts every single week. Actually, I put out 2 podcasts every single week, and I would hate for you guys to miss out. This is our chance to sit together, talk about some really cool topics that hopefully are of interest to you, and just connect as people who are interested in the health space. We talk as if we are talking over coffee. I work by myself in my home. My husband has a 9-to-5 job out of the house. And so I really look at these podcasts as chances to hang out with my girlfriends, because otherwise I don't really get to see a lot of people throughout the day. So you're as close as it comes. So I cherish those moments. I do not take it for granted. All right, let's jump into this episode. So like I mentioned, the question was, had I ever heard about the 30-30-30 diet? And what were my thoughts on it? So I did a little bit of research because at first I didn't think that I had heard of it, and I still don't really remember hearing about it, but it turns out I actually have been introduced. So I found an article, and the article is called "Why Everyone is Talking About the 30-30-30 Diet of Weight Loss." So I was like, wow, that really comes together with the question that was asked, right? And so proponents claim, this is me reading some of the article, proponents claim that unlike other diets that have garnered attention in the past, the 30-30-30 approach isn't a fad, it's a lifestyle change. The 30-30-30 diet involves eating, all right, you guys ready for it? Here's the principle. 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up and then completing 30 minutes of low-intensity exercise. This method first appeared in Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Body, which was popularized by nutritionist and wellness practitioner Gary Brecka as of recently.
There's something called 30-30-30. I've never seen anything in my life strip fat off of a human being faster than this. I wish I could have patented it. There's an entire book written by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Body explaining this whole theory.
So that's how I must have heard about it at some point before, because I actually did read The 4-Hour Body back in 2010. I don't know if Tim Ferriss is definitely still around. I don't know if he's as popular as he was around that time. But if you guys remember, around the 2008-2010 period, it was all about the 4-hour work week, the 4-hour body. I think now there's the 4-hour cookbook or something like that. And I was definitely on that train. I looked up to Tim Ferriss as somebody who just would really put himself out there and experiment and use his own body as a way to test different theories and ideas, so that when people asked, hey, what did you do? How did it work for you? He would always have these crazy experiments. And I really admired him for that. And I wouldn't say that he's the reason that I do what I do nowadays, but for sure, I take some of his ideology, I guess you could say, and put it towards my own life, because I've always told you guys, don't be afraid to experiment. As long as it's not going to cause you harm, then there's no reason to test what could do great for you. Just because something works for somebody doesn't mean it'll work for you, and vice versa, right? So I've always been a big believer in Tim Ferriss's idea of just testing different things out, with your nutrition, with your fitness, with your recovery methods. Again, as long as it's not hurting you, don't be afraid to give it a try. So this theory was in his 2010, The 4-Hour Body. So is it an effective approach to weight loss, or is it just another fad? That's the question. So my initial thoughts, just before continuing on, just knowing what those 3 principles are that, are those things going to make you lose weight? No, not necessarily. Not at all, in fact. But I'll get to that in just a second. Those 3 things alone are not going to help you lose weight. Are they healthy habits to employ in your life? Abso-freaking-lutely. And we'll get more into that in just a second. But my initial thoughts are, it's a healthy step to start the day that can then roll over into healthier actions throughout the day. So starting the day off on a solid foundation where you wake up and you do things that make you feel good, then you're going to be more likely to create habits and more throughout the day that are also going to make you feel good. 30 grams of protein in the morning can help you to avoid mid-morning snacking and encourage 13 grams of protein for lunch and dinner. Not to mention, if you start with a high protein breakfast, hitting your protein goal throughout the day is going to be a lot easier. And you guys know I talk about it all the time, that if your goal is to live a really active lifestyle, you are strength training, you want to maintain your muscle mass and your strength, especially as we get older, then you really need to make sure that you're prioritizing getting protein into your life. And for most of us, that comes out to about 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh. Per pound, not per kilogram. And I say for most of us because I do think that if you are on the heavier side when it comes to how much you weigh, it's harder to get that much protein in, right? If you weigh 200 or more pounds, then getting that much protein in, especially right off the bat, can be really, really difficult. So I do like to just kind of throw that blanket statement of the goal is 0.8 to 1 gram, but that might look different for some people, at least where they're starting. And then as they get adjusted, they could always up their protein for there. But by starting the day with the high protein meal, that's going to make it easier so that at 9 o'clock at night, you're not going, oh my gosh, I still have 50 grams of protein, right? If you think about starting your day with 30 grams, then you only have 20 grams of protein left in the evening. And that's like a cup of yogurt. That's nothing. So it makes it, like I said, really easy to get your target in. And then getting your workout in first thing in the morning, it just makes it more sustainable. So I really do agree with that as well. Getting some sort of movement into the morning, whether it's your planned workout or just some sort of movement, 30 minutes of low intensity, going for a walk in the morning. It makes it so there's not a lot that can get between you and your workout if you do it first thing in the morning, right? Life's not going to be able to get in your way, at least very often. Of course, we have those days where we wake up and the dog has thrown up, or you find like the cat's thrown up in the house or something, and that messes you up. But for the most part, if you plan on getting your workout done first thing in the morning, there's not a lot that's going to stop you. So that's why I do always encourage people, if and where you are in your season of life right now, you can just go ahead and mark it off first thing in the morning. That's the way to go. As you push it off throughout the afternoon or just throughout the day, it's a lot easier for things to get in your way. And then suddenly you're like, man, I don't have 60 minutes to work out anymore because I got stuck in this meeting that lasted longer. So I'm only going to work out for 30 minutes. Or sometimes, I have to make it to this appointment, or my kid has to go here. And so suddenly your workout takes a back burner, and before you know it, you're not working out at all. And you're hoping you're going to be able to push it to the next day. So I absolutely love the idea of just getting it done first thing in the morning. All right, now let's continue on. Blah, 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 blah. Back to it. All right, so let's start with the positives. The good news about the 30-30-30 regimen is that it's relatively sensible in comparison to some of its predecessors, and undoubtedly the trends that will follow it, says Sophie Meaden, a consultant nutrition at City Dietitians. Having a high protein breakfast is a good idea as it's more satiating than some of our typical breakfast options. In lay terms, that means that you'll feel fuller longer. Absolutely. Again, I've already kind of stated that of the benefits of getting your protein first thing in the morning at a high dose, but also if you are having just carbohydrate-rich morning breakfast, which is really typical for, I feel like, an American diet, right? A bowl of cereal or a Pop-Tart, those things taste great, or muffin, but they are so quickly digested that it doesn't keep you full for very long. And so that's when you get the munchies, the breakfast munchies at 9, 10, 11:30 or 11 a.m. in the morning, but you still have to wait a couple of hours before lunch, right? And so that makes you have those like mid-morning crashes where you're just trying to get something into your system to fill you up until lunch, or you're ravenous at lunch and end up not making the wisest of decisions because you're just trying to grab whatever you can. Whereas if you start with a nice balanced breakfast, then it's going to actually help keep you full from one meal to the next. And that's what I really want to stress. I feel like we do talk a lot about just getting in your protein, right? Or trying to avoid an all-carb breakfast. But really it needs to be a balanced macronutrient plan for your meal where you're getting carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, because it's really all three of those that come together to help support your body to have the most energy and to feel the fullest that it possibly can. But I did want to talk a little bit deeper into digestion. Specifically, we always talk about how protein keeps you fuller longer. And I do think that there's a couple other factors besides just the macronutrient of itself that can change how a food makes you feel in terms of keeping you satiated and how fast it can be digested. And some of those things are age and metabolism. As we age, our metabolism tends to decelerate, which we know, which can influence the digestion rate. Especially the number one reason our metabolism slows down is not just because we're getting older. It's because as we get older, we tend to slow down and lose muscle mass. We're not losing muscle mass necessarily because we're getting older. We're losing some muscle mass because we aren't pushing ourselves the way that we were. Our activity is not the same. And hormone changes can lead into that as well. But that is an effect in how your food is digested. Number 2, overall health and gut flora. A balanced bacteria environment in the gut aids in efficient food breakdown and nutrient absorption. So make sure that your gut's nice and healthy. Take a probiotic. I've actually been making kombucha for the past 6 months, and that is one way for Dan and I to know that we are getting a very good dose of our good gut bacteria every single day to keep our gut nice and healthy. And then the third factor that influences digestion speed is the type and the combination of food consumed, which is what I was just talking about. That yes, protein does keep you fuller longer, but it's really a mix of having all three together that's going to keep you the most satisfied. And also meals that are rich in fiber also have a slower transition time throughout your gut, again, keeping you fuller for a longer time. So then we hear, and this is not part of the article, this is just me chit-chatting, again, wanting to talk a little bit more about food digestion. We hear all the time that how fast carbs are broken down. What does that actually mean? Have you ever been curious about that? You hear, protein's going to keep you fuller longer. What does that actually mean? What is the breakdown in the digestion rate for each of those? Well, I did a little bit of research because I was interested as well. Simple carbs can break down in as little as 30 minutes. Now that is simple carbs. If you have more of a complex carbs or carbs that are high in fiber, then those can absolutely slow digestion by a lot. So instead of having 30 minutes to break down, they can actually stay in your system for about 2 hours to even a little bit longer. Now, the thing with carbohydrates that makes them so easy to digest and so fast through our system is that we have an enzyme in our mouth called amylase. So the second we start chewing sweet things that are rich in carbohydrates, we start digesting carbohydrates. And that's because that's our fast energy system, right? We use carbohydrates as a fuel source for immediate energy. And so it gets down, broken, and pulled into the bloodstream very fast. Now, things like chicken breast, very, very high protein, are going to take about 2 hours to completely break down. But due to thermogenesis, they can actually burn more calories. Now, thermogenesis is just a fancy word for how much energy for our bodies take to actually break down that food. And for between carbs, proteins, and fats, thermogenesis has the highest rate. That means it takes more energy to actually break down a protein than it does anything else. And I do talk about a little bit more about that in just a second. So it takes about 2 hours to break down something like chicken breast, which is why, let's see, a fast-acting protein can digest at a rate of about 10 grams per hour. So if you're going to drink a 20-gram protein shake, you can assume that that's going to take around 2 hours to fully break down and get into your system. If you have a 10-gram whey protein shake, it's going to take about 1 hour. And then fats like avocado, think about avocado because it is a good fat, but it does also have fiber, it can take up to 3 to 4 hours. So it is very slow to break down, but it doesn't take a lot of energy. That thermogenetic effect, like I was talking about, thermogenesis, it's not as high in fats because fats are easily broken down. They are broken down later in the digestive system in our intestines. So that's what makes it feel like it's longer for the actual breakdown. But things that are pure fat, like butter, can only take an hour to fully break down. So I find that interesting. If you guys found that interesting, let me know. But that's the science of why it's important to really make sure that you include the good sources of protein, not only to help with your muscle recovery and just your health in general, but to also help you keep full from one meal to the next. So starting breakfast with 30 grams, super smart. Now, back to the article. Natalie Burrows, who is a nutritional therapist and founder of Integral Wellness, agrees. She points to a 2014 study that published in the Federation of American Societies of Experimental Biology journal. It found that people who ate 30 grams of protein at breakfast consumed fewer calories at lunch. I think that's a great idea. That goes back to what I was just saying, so that you're not ravenous at lunchtime and grabbing everything that you want in front of you, right? But I think that it's also important to realize that your goal shouldn't be to eat as little at lunch. You shouldn't be looking at your breakfast to be like, okay, if I have a really big breakfast, I'm only going to need 100 calories at my lunchtime, right? Just make sure that you're going into it with the right mindset of, I'm eating a nice, healthy breakfast so that I feel good and I feel satisfied, so that I can feel good going into my lunch to make healthy decisions there as well that are going to align with my goals and also just make me feel good. You know, that's what it really comes down to, is creating habits that push you from one habit to the next of things that actually make you feel good in your life. When you start the day feeling crappy, feeling slow, feeling bloated, then you're going to carry those habits with you, and you're going to likely continue at lunchtime making choices that make you feel crappy, make you feel slow, make you feel bloated. And the thing that I've learned throughout my entire life is that a lot of times we don't even realize that we feel crappy until you experience what it's like to not feel crappy. Does that make sense? Like, almost you don't know what it feels like to feel good until you actually feel good and start to make those changes. So I actually do love the 30-30-30 effect, because it can help snowball and help you have that realization of, oh, this is what it feels like to start the day off feeling energized and feeling good about myself. Now, moving on. See, in addition, Burrow notes that protein has a thermogenesis effect. Remember, I told you, full circle moment, we're going to come back to that. So that means that you burn more energy to metabolize than you would breaking down carbohydrates and fat. Okay, let's talk a little bit about thermogenesis in a little bit more detail for those science geeks out there, if you're interested in it. So protein can increase thermogenesis, or the process by which calories from foods are burned off as heat, and has a metabolic advantage over diets with less protein. So basically what it's saying is that if you eat 100 grams of protein for lunch, or if you eat 100 grams of bread for lunch, those things are going to be very, very differently absorbed into your body. It's going to take you more energy to break down the chicken than it did to break down that bread. And so the overall calories that you are consumed for your own energy are going to be a lot less, which means in theory, it can help you get into a deficit easier because you're having to work harder to break it down. You're literally like exercising to be able to break that protein down, if that makes sense. So that's what they're trying to say here in terms of, is it a beneficial way to lose weight? Now, just to go into a little bit more detail and a little bit more depth on this, protein has a thermogenic effect of food, which is called your TEF, of about 20 to 30%, meaning that about 25 to 30% of the calories of protein are used for digestion and metabolism. So that means, going back to our example, if you had 100 calories worth of chicken breast that you ate for lunch, 30 of those calories are going to be used just to help burn it down, just to help digestion. So out of those 100 calories, you're only actually taking in 70 calories. Again, very simple, and there's a lot more to it, and there's no like this is the answer, but at least to give the idea. And then foods also that are high in fiber or complex carbs also have a higher thermogenesis. As much as 39% of the calories are going to be burned as heat during digestion. And then dietary fats, like I mentioned before, have the lowest thermic effect. They are slow to break down, but they are easy to break down. So if you are trying to get into a caloric deficit and you are trying to lose weight, it's really important to look at the type of food that you're eating, because it will help you stay fuller longer, but also work in your benefit to be in a deficit. Now, what I do want to make sure to stress here is that when you're tracking my Fitness Pal, don't change things up where if you're like, wait, but if 30% of my calories from my chicken breast are going towards digestion, then I should only track that I'm eating 70 calories of the 100, right? No, don't look at it like that. Don't overanalyze it, because again, everybody's different, every body is different, and it's just something to kind of keep in mind in terms of understanding how macronutrients work in your body, but you shouldn't go eating it as a way of actually planning out your deficit, if that makes sense. If you guys have questions about that, let me know. But combining both of these effects may mean that it helps to be in a caloric deficit, which is good news when trying to lose weight. And then what about movement? So this is, I'm reading again from the article that I read. Combining, what about movement? Burroughs says that there are many benefits to completing 30 minutes of low intensity exercise in the morning, and improved weight management is one of them. So specifically, they talk about low intensity exercise, which I think that just depending on what you're able to do, if the morning time is your workout time, then it's going to be it's going to probably be higher intensity, right? You're probably going to be doing your weightlifting or your run because that's your exercise time. If you're able to fit in or make a longer regiment with your training, then if you're able to start off with a 30-minute low intensity light jog, like bike ride, going for a walk, then that's great too. It's going to be easy on your system. And because you don't really have a lot of fuel in your body yet, I think that's what they're really trying to hit upon. But I don't think that you should feel bad or change. Like if your 30 minutes or your hour in the morning is the only time that you get to work out, I would not use this as an excuse to just make it a low intensity workout. I would then try to fit in 30 minutes of low intensity walking throughout the day, because what that's going to do is increase your non-exercise NEAT, right? Your non-exercise calories that you are burning per day, which is called NEAT. So that means that you are increasing your calorie expenditure, right? How many calories you burn per day, and just doing it by walking, not focused exercise, or not necessarily walking, but walking, bike riding, just something that's not really exercise. It's just movement, and it's not going to make you super hungry throughout the day. It can absolutely lead in helping with weight loss, because it doesn't give you that effect of, oh my gosh, I work so hard, I am so hungry. That's why a lot of times, instead of increasing your exercise intensity, you should keep your exercise intensity where it's at based on progressive overload, but try to increase your NEAT throughout the day to help you get into a deficit without having to cut your calories back too much. So in turn, those support sustainable weight loss. Now, overall, is the 30-30-30 diet a diet? No, I don't think it is at all. I think that all three are really healthy habits to start the day off right, but in no way is it going to ensure that you're in a caloric deficit to lose weight. It's going to take obviously a caloric deficit. That means tracking your food, knowing that you're in a deficit and doing it day after day for an extended period of time until you get the results that you want. But what I do love is that it can help get the ball rolling and creating healthier habits throughout the day to help you get into that deficit. A couple of things that I would also have liked to see would include some kind of hydration, because when you wake up, the first thing that you should do before coffee or even before you eat a big breakfast is to get in at least 8 ounces of water. I don't care if it's cold, hot, has lemon in it, has apple cider vinegar in it. I don't think that's important. I think that it's just really important after a night of sleep to wake up and hydrate your body and get the ball rolling in that side. But other than that, I love these things as starter plans. So if you're having that kind of, you're in that phase of life where you're like, I know that I need to make healthier choices, but I don't know where to start. Start with these three things. 30 minutes of 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up, and a 30-minute workout of some sort. It can be low intensity like they talk about here, but again, I think it's just most important if you're able to just knock out your workout first thing in the morning. So then again, you don't have things that are going to pull you away and make it easy for that workout to get pushed to the side. So that's my thoughts on the 30-30-30. If you have heard of this or if you have ever done it yourself, I would love to hear. So comment, slide into my DMs, comment in the messages down below the video if you're on YouTube, and fill me in. And again, if you have questions or topics that you would like me to answer, don't hold back. Let me know what's on your mind. And then the last thing that I'll say about this, you guys, is that if you are stuck in a workout rut right now, you know you need to work out, but maybe the workouts that you're doing aren't exciting to you, they aren't delivering the results that you want, or you just don't have a workout program at all, then I got the answer. Fit Women's Weekly Live is my online women's strength training studio. I go live every single day. That doesn't mean that I expect you to go and work out every single day, but just like the workout studio down the street where they're always doing classes and then you're able to do the class that fits your schedule, it's there for you. Except you don't have to go off of my schedule. You get to go off of your schedule and make your workouts fit your life versus your life trying to fit your workouts, right? You're not having to go through traffic to try to get there. But one thing that I can promise you is that not only am I going to be your trainer and provide you with freaking amazing workouts, but I'm also going to be your workout partner so that you can make sure that even at home, you're getting the push and the intensity that you need to see the results that you want. So if you're interested in giving it a shot, the link is down below, completely free to try it out for 14 days, and you get free access to my app, the Fit Women's Weekly Live app. All right, guys, go on, prosper. But thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.